Welcome. You're listening to Sisters with Purpose Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 10 of Sisters with Purpose, where real conversations lead to real growth. I'm Tamika.
And I'm Kimberly.
And today is going to be a little bit different.
Celebratory.
We have reached a milestone. Can you believe it?
Yes. I mean, we've been putting in work.
10.
Have y'all been enjoying?
This has been episode 10. Somebody said to me, one of my homegirls said, I can't keep up. Y'all just been popping them out.
Yeah, we have.
Weekly. Every Thursday, y'all gonna get a new episode.
We will continue to be consistent. So this is going to be a little different episode because it is our 10th one. So we're excited.
We don't got no sounds on the thing. We probably
we'll
need to
probably
learn how
work
to use
it out
them.
at some point.
But yeah, so today we're just going to kind of go through a little bit of our episodes, kind of touch some key points, and next week when we come back to y'all, it's going to be a little bit different. We got new topics coming up, but today we really just wanted to highlight one, our subscribers have completely gone up.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone.
Like, it's really, really good. But we still going to give y'all a scripture or a quote of the day, okay? Because that's what we do. We got to give you that. Okay, so what you got for the people today, Kimberly?
So, you know what? I'm just going to go with, a celebratory quote.
Okay.
And I think sometimes we fail to, just encourage each other. Yeah. Life is meant to be lived as a celebration.
Okay.
This is how you write on the wall of life.
Yes.
Life is a celebration, depending on whatever your emotions are. And life is a journey, right? And as long as you wake up and you breathe, you should celebrate that day. Yes. And so life is a celebration. So we're taking this time, we're taking this moment to just celebrate, just like we said, however small or however large a celebration is. And this is a milestone with us. So we are celebrating and we are excited.
Little ting early, little ting
so we're going to take a little sip.
Let me see. She talked about celebrations. How many of you celebrate your life even with the small moments? I think a lot of times you made a really good point. A lot of times people wait for something big. Yeah. Even to celebrate others, or they wait for a holiday. Yeah. But the saying is so true. You have to give your people their flowers while they can still smell them. Talk about our favorite topic so far.
For sure.
And we're celebrating ourselves. We're celebrating our subscribers. We're celebrating people that have come up to us and said they enjoyed, or we've received a text and they're like, y'all are really doing it. And this is not something that we foresaw coming. We've always wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
We've talked about it. But I think a lot of times imposter syndrome sets in. Yeah. One, and then sometimes life just takes over and you forget, you forget the things that you are working towards. And so what do you want to go into next?
I mean, we're just going to highlight our, 9 episodes. Our first episode was just us introducing ourselves to you, introducing you, some who knew us and some who didn't, to this type of platform. And we said in the beginning that we were going to be committed to doing this. We've had some little hiccups. We've had some troubleshooting. We've had some technical difficulties. Right. But we continue to show up every week. And, our first episode, it was really exciting. Yeah. Because it was new. It was fresh. And we just learned a lot about, how we were going to navigate, and even incorporating this in our lives, because it takes time. Yeah. Like, we have to schedule time recording. And we both have very busy lives. We now have a family business and things like that. And we said we're going to stay committed and we're going to do that. So we really hope that you all learned something from episode 1, where, we talked about what Sisters with Purpose was going to be and what this podcast was going to bring.
Yes. And a lot of y'all did, a lot of my classmates or something, they would comment on y'all they would comment on some of the comments that were made, and too many of y'all, a little bit of y'all, kind of laughed at the part when she said I was like, "What'd you call me?" You were like, "I was a little."
I said you were a little gnat,
and too many of y'all laughed at that. So I know who you are. I'm gonna get you. So going into episode 2, episode 2 was talking about the pressures of having it all together.
Yeah.
And we can kind of relate to that in regards to this episode. Like we talked in regards to this episode, like we just talked about, you know, we were thinking about how we were going to do this. We didn't want it to be scripted. We want it to be natural. Like I can't look off something, okay, let's talk, like we have a format, but we really just wanted it to flow. And so in the beginning, we're like, well, what are we going to do? And a lot of times when you try to have it all together, we did look at a couple of other, I'm a real big podcast listener and she's gotten into podcasts, but even the video, just looking at how they're formatting, I'm like, oh, we should do it like this. But then when we realized that we can really just let it flow and do it ourselves, the first episode, we had no planning. We just had a date and we had a topic. That was it. And so after we started doing it, people were saying they were enjoying it. They were saying, we like the fact that y'all episodes are short, they're quick, they're to the point. And so that episode really highlighted the pressures of having it all together and being able to give yourself grace. Like that was I knew a lot of people that reached out to me and said that was a really good episode because sometimes we do think we have to have all our T's crossed and all our I's dotted. We did not have all our T's crossed and all our I's dotted when we started this podcast, okay? Even just learning our soundboard system and the mics and everything, it was trial and error. So that was a good episode because that allowed us to just take a breather, take a deep breath. And if we met, trust me,
we're going to get
when she
better.
said we done had we have recorded episodes. Full episodes.
Over and over.
Some of them didn't have sound.
No.
Some of them
didn't have video.
They didn't have video. And I was like, what is going on? So, you know, the episode 2 was about, you know, the pressures of having it all together and learning to give yourself grace.
And that ties into our third episode is, you know, are you a true sister? Like where, you know, giving our, you know, friends grace, giving our true supporters, you know, grace. And, you know, I think one of the things that I said, you know, what do you see in a true sister is just, you know, that genuineness, right? That non-judgmental, you know, attitude where, you know, we're not always, if she confides in me, I'm not going to run tell that to somebody else, right? And so, you know, you keep that close to your heart, you know, when somebody confides in you. And so, you know, just really having that, I think the word that I use is supported. You know, just having that sister, whether biological or, you know, just a very close friend, and you've had that bond together, you know, just those type of relationships are very important, and they help mold you into like the person, you know, that you are or are becoming. Even in our adulthood, we talked about, you know, having friends, making friends as an adult. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think we joked, you know, no new friends, whatever, but, you know, just having that openness and embracing true sisterhood and true friendship. So that was a good episode.
I enjoyed that episode.
I enjoyed that
episode. I really thought that episode 4 was going to be my favorite, but now that I'm thinking about the ones ahead, episode 4 was talking about daily habits that changed your life. And so we were sharing tips of things that we do that we feel like has changed our life and life changing. For me, I think the biggest one for me, keeping, you know, having slow mornings and keeping my phone on do not disturb until I'm ready to, what I say, expose myself to the world, right? When I was younger and when social media first came out, that would be the first thing I did. I would open up and just see what was happening, right? Wanting to feel in the know. And so, you know, for me, my mornings, as far as introducing, you know, exposing myself to the world, really doesn't start till I may be up and about it, all in my house doing all the things. But my world, I don't expose myself to the world until it's like 10, 11 o'clock, 10:30. And I'm like, okay. And then that kind of gave me the time to spend time with God, drink my tea, maybe check some emails, do some business, do some work, do all those things, put some clothes in the laundry. And I feel like I've had a lot of the morning where I was able to slowly move without feeling the hustle and bustle of things. And so I thought that was going to be my favorite episode, but I was like, no, there's another one that I really like.
So episode 5 was, you know, faith over fear, right? How to trust God. And, you know, we talked about introducing ourselves in the beginning, you know, what our faith was and that we're not ashamed of our faith, but, you know, whatever faith you have, you know, just having that faith over your feelings and, standing firm, when it doesn't look like, what you want it to look like, do you still have that spiritual mentality, to stick it out and just believe in. And so that kind of went deep.
Yeah, that was a deeper episode.
A deeper episode.
I think that was the longest one too, honestly. Maybe it wasn't.
It may have been, but I think
it was a little short.
I think we really, got into really sharing, our belief,
right.
We grew up having a faith base,
right.
Going to church, a relationship with God. And, for some people, they didn't have that,
right.
growing up and rearing up as a child. And so sometimes you have that hesitance, is there a God? And so we really hope that was something that you could, evaluate your faith and what your belief is. And, sometimes, we have to believe that there is a higher power, right?
That was a good one. And I think a lot of I recall a few people reached out to me. I have a few people that will reach out when an episode drops.
I don't have nobody reach out to me.
Really? Come on, y'all. Okay. Episode 6.
Yes.
This, I believe, was my favorite one.
Oh, okay.
And it was how to love people without losing yourself.
Yeah.
And we talked about even, I'm not a biological mom, but she's a mom, and how you pour so much into other people that sometimes you are so depleted and you wondering why you're having all these emotional, spiritual, mental, effects, but it's because you're empty. Your well is dry. And we talked about, you can love people without, we talked about relationships, we talked about friendships, marriages, relationships with your kids, your coworkers. A lot of times, especially as Black women, this is one of the things we highlighted, was because it looks easy, people do not think it's heavy. Right? So we make it look easy because we're always doing, we're always correcting, we're always nurturing, we're always doing something, the problem solver. And sometimes it's heavy. And sometimes in the process of loving other people, you lose yourself. And if you're not able to do something for somebody, that does not mean you love them less. We talked about using the word no and understanding that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to over-explain yourself if you cannot do something. Stop at no. And if they get into, well, why? Because I said so. You don't even have to say anything else. No and because I said so. Both have periods. So we talked about that. And I think that was really one of my favorite episodes because I think we shared some... So we were able to hear even some things from each other that were like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. But sometimes if you, I don't like to be overstimulated. And so if someone calls me with an issue, I'm going to listen. But I'm like, I'm big on, I learned this years ago from a mentor, you have to ask people if they have the capacity. Because if I don't have the capacity and I'm already dealing with something, I may not be able to listen to what you say. So sometimes if you tell people you can't, I don't have the capacity. That doesn't mean you don't love them. That just means you're loving yourself first. I need to decompress myself. So we did a lot of cackling in that one.
We did. And I think that even spilled over into, our other episode, talking about boundaries. And we said boundaries are self-care. So that kind of spilled over into that episode. And, just like she said, no is a complete sentence. And sometimes, I know we throw this phrase around all the time as far as, protecting your peace. But, again, I think the quote that we shared in that episode was somehow that it has something to do with, if you don't manage your expectation of your boundary, then it's just a request.
Yes. That was really good. That was a good
it
quote.
was just a request. It's like, okay, so yeah, they said that to me, but they're not going to enforce it.
And requests get denied all the time.
Yeah. And so it's like, no. Boundaries are you enforcing, what you expect for yourself, not for the other person. And so that was, I'm almost leaning towards that was one of, my favorite episodes because a lot of times, just like I said, as a younger mom and having a family young or whatever, I didn't know what boundaries were, and now that my children are, out the house, they have their own family and things like that. And it's like, well, hey, mom, can you do this? Or can you no, out of town, but then she told me, well, you do end up doing it. But I've learned.
She's gotten better.
I've gotten better.
Even when she's on, I noticed when she's on, when we go, she would be trying to do things while we're away. And like the kids, they would, her adult children, they would like call her for stuff. And I would have to snatch the phone and be like, we are on vacation. I mean, figure it out. This past weekend. It did happen this weekend. But I'm like, figure it out. We love y'all. But she needs to decompress too. Mm-hmm. And if they can't reach her, they'll call me. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. But I remember one time they thought I was with her and I wasn't, because they saw I was out and they were like, hey, are you with my mom? And I said, no. They're like, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm really not. I'm in a whole nother city and state. Yep. I'm not with her. But so they got that like, oh, if I can't reach mom, I'm going to call my auntie and I'm going to see if she do it. But yeah, you've gotten better. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I'll give you
that was episode 7.
Yeah. Episode 8. This was a good one too. I do kind of got a little favorite. One. But romanticizing your life without breaking the bank.
That was your favorite, wasn't it?
I knew it was. That was my ultimate favorite. Like, I recently just came back from celebrating my real close girlfriend, and we went to Florida. We just needed the sun. Mm-hmm. And, I was taking we take each other's pictures, and it's so funny because we went out to dinner with a couple of her other girlfriends, and one of her girlfriends said, are you the one that's 90% of the time taking her pictures when she's on vacation? I said, yes. They're like, wait, so y'all two be together and you be behind the lens? And I'd be like, yes. She's like, oh my God. I said, but she was like, we didn't know who that was. And even people,
you telling them your secret.
When I post my pictures, I know. When I post them, they be like, who's behind the lens? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why does somebody have to be behind the lens? First of all, I got an automatic clicker.
Yeah, they have equipment now where nobody has to be behind the lens.
But romanticizing your life without breaking the bank. We talked about going to, movies when they have the like $2 Tuesdays or something like that. I don't know a movie theater have $2 Tuesday, but I'm just saying, taking yourself to the movies. Going on a lunch date, taking yourself to the spa, or creating a spa in your home. Romanticizing your life does not always have to mean using monetary money to go somewhere. You can romanticize your life, and you even talked about this, putting on loungewear and putting on your fuzzy shoes and just feeling like you that girl because you are, and romanticizing your life, because romanticizing your life is really creating a moment, creating a space that makes you feel good about yourself.
It is. And I think one of the things that we even added with that, like, you can be in a relationship with another person and still romanticize your life. And just like we said, it's like, it's a upgrade, a level up to self-care.
Yes.
Right? It's the things that
you may be giving them some hints to hint, you didn't do this, so I'm going to do it myself. But
things like that or whatever. And so you can be in a relationship and still romanticize your life and have a nice time with you. And episode 9 was our last one, and it's staying committed in the not yet. Ugh. And I think that, again, we kind of talked about our faith, right? And we were talking about whether that was platonic relationships or, just friendships, right? When you hit those rough patches, right? When you hit those rough patches, if you are in a relationship and you're wondering, hey, what direction is this going? Is this going in? And, you have to ask yourself, are you committed to that?
Right.
And then even, in your singleness, are you not just doing busy work? Right. But are you doing things that bring value to you? Right. And so staying committed is like, what are you doing while you're waiting? Right. Waiting in the not yet, being committed in the not yet. And, that even, ties into, the romanticizing, your life. And again, my thing is timing is everything. Right. And you may say, well, it's been 2 years since, I haven't been in a relationship or whatever, but what have you done in those 2 years? Just like we mentioned in that episode, you purchased a house. Yes. You went back and got your doctorate degree. And so things like that, like, what are you doing to bring self-value and value added to you? And so that was our last episode. I think we had a good run. I think we had a good variety of episodes so far. Tell us what your favorite episode was. Right. Like, we want to hear from you. We were just excited to come on the camera and say that this was episode 10 for us, and it's a milestone, and we're excited for what's next.
If you're new here, welcome. Yes. If you are returning, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have not watched, they're not very long.
Nope.
I do see that our first episode and our second episode were our highest viewed episodes.
Okay.
So go back and just watch. Kind of pull. We drop a lot of different nuggets, things that a lot of people that I've even shared, even my nephew, her son, he's like, oh, that was good. He was like, Mom and Monty, they dropping some gems. So there are some things in there that you may be like, oh, so go back. They're quick episodes.
Yeah.
We appreciate you all. We are looking forward to episode 11 because we're going to shift the gears a little bit and go into something, a little different.
Bit more fun.
And so, yes, we really appreciate you guys. If you have not subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe.
You like.
Make sure that you share.
Yes.
And until next time,
bye!